Una broke away from her dance partner and joined me. "Are you having fun?" I asked, handing her the red wine. "Not really. It's more for business than pleasure." "What, dancing with a group of handsome men? Nice job if you can get it. This older guy in the gray suit will soon want to feel your ass." I nodded at the man next to me. "He's been staring at you for 20 minutes. Come to this corner for a moment, sufferer. And for goodness sake, smile. You're embarrassing me. Am I embarrassing you? Look who's talking." We stood at one end of the bar, where it was quiet. She smiled at me. People might have been watching, so I played along and smiled back. "Listen carefully, Peter. I work in sales. My base salary is good, but the commissions are even better. I'm good at what I do and have closed 3 of the company's 7 biggest deals this year. This party is dedicated to my latest success. At the end of this month, 50% of my commissions will be transferred to the bank. The rest will go towards my Christmas bonus. I know all this. And there's something else, you know. This bonus I receive will pay for your dream vacation next year. Pacific Coast Highway, Big Sur, Monterey. While watching, I even earned it enough to rent a Mustang convertible for 3 weeks. I know that too. This is my reward for dragging me to this boring party. For being forced to watch my girlfriend flirt with a group of guys while some old pervert undresses you with his eyes. It's annoying. Well, here's something else you obviously don't know. The managers who signed this week, 2, not a group. Each of them only had 2 dances with me. This is expected. They didn't grope me, touch me inappropriately, or even dance cheek to cheek. "Fine, sorry," I said. And the old guy watching me, the CEO of the company, insists on being called Gavin. Yes, of course he's watching me. He is committed to the moral standards of the company. A hand on my bottom for more than a second, and on Monday I will be taken to his office and shown a yellow card. Lord, he even checks our lunchtime. And we're never allowed to go to a hotel for a business lunch just in case we're tempted. So maybe it's easier? Fair enough, I will. But you understand that this will not stop him from being carried away by you. If I wanted to have the last word, I failed. Yes, it is. He is a gay. We rejoined the crowd. I'm not much of a party person, but I made up for it by dancing with Unaa and chatting with the managers and Gavin, and smiling a lot. Perhaps I also ate and drank too much, but she seemed pleased. The sex when we got home was great. I don't know if she was excited because she put me in my place or because of the big contract. That didn't bother me either. Our sex life is already quite turbulent. We've both been married before. My ex and I had 2 children, and then she talked me into getting a vasectomy. A year later, she asked for a no-fault divorce. Thank you. She immediately picked up an American and left with my sons for San Diego. There was nothing I could do about it, but at least I didn't have to pay child support. Chuck is rich. This probably influenced my interest in the West Coast of the U.S. I've only been able to see my boys once in the last 2 years. Unaa was previously married to a guy who was incredibly jealous and practically kept her under lock and key. Then, during a medical examination, she was diagnosed with an STD. This was reported to her husband, who admitted that he was having an affair. He in turn told the woman he was having an affair with, and her husband quickly beat Unaa's ex. She filed for divorce on the grounds of his infidelity, but he died before the case was heard. There were rumors that the stroke was caused by the beating, but nothing could be proven. There was no life insurance, just debts. And the whole affair made her sensitive to jealousy. That's why I pissed her off at the party. We lived in our small rented apartment. The plan was to restore our financial situation and get married when we could afford to buy an apartment. Luckily, Unaa is not interested in having children. Her bonus and sales figures entitle her to an extra week's vacation next summer when business is down. She is more than happy to have my children join us on our trip along the Pacific Coast Highway. My ex agrees, too. The next day, Saturday, Unaa told me even more stories about her boss. He lives quietly with a male partner. They are not married and never show their affection in public. He often sends clerks to restaurants to check who sales representatives are buying dinner for. And when they have to leave on business, he is believed to pay various hotel employees to keep track of who is in what room, whether they have visitors, and so on. It wasn't until Sunday morning that I realized I hadn't gone to the toilet the day before. I usually walk fairly regularly, and I suspect that my natural rhythms may have been disrupted by something I ate at the party. By Sunday evening, my stomach was hurting. I often stayed late at work. There was a serious failure in the computer system. It took me 6 months to get to the bottom of the problem. The initial mistake happened a year ago and grew like a lump. I was in constant contact with our branch in San Francisco, which was running a parallel system. Hence the growing fascination with their stories about the Pacific Coast Highway, which I have seen in many films. They were inclined to be sarcastic because our British system often failed, while theirs was infallible. But the end of the problem was in sight, so I had no choice but to go to work on Monday with a sore stomach. Unaa and I live in an old house with a terrace. The rent is low, and it was all we could afford when we first met. The house has a tiny entrance hall from which you can immediately go up the stairs to 2 bedrooms or to a living room combined with a kitchen. Between them, there is a small bar counter on which stands a huge potted plant. We don't receive guests often. A door at the back of the kitchen leads into an unusual hall. It is a square about 1 meter on a side with doors on all 4 sides. One, naturally, leads back to the kitchen. The next one is in the place with shelves where the water heater is located. My mom always called it the air closet. Then there's the door to the bathroom attached to the back of the house. It looks like a given and dates back to the days when people washed in the kitchen sink and the toilet was at the end of the garden. There is now a small shed there with the old bathtub still hanging in it. Finally, there is a back door on the side of the house that opens onto the wall between us and the neighboring house. There, on the left, on the way to the enclosed garden, you pass our bathroom. When I got home on Monday, my stomach still hurt. But Unaa did not report that anyone else was injured after the party. I gave up lunch and dinner, and in the evening, I finally decompressed. Well, don't you hate those sessions after which you just wipe yourself off and wipe yourself off? Half a roll of toilet paper later, I finished and did my final flush. But everything was wrong, because not everything went away. I waited and tried again, but the toilet became dangerously full. I thought its muddy contents would spill onto the floor. Time to use the plunger. Like most people, I don't enjoy this activity, but I wanted to clean the toilet before Unaa left. A few vigorous strokes restored the leak, and all was well. I took the shower heed. It just reached the toilet. A minute of hot water helped me clean the bowl and rinse the plunger. I washed my hands, went and made myself a sandwich. He was dying of hunger. On Tuesday, my daily routine was restored. Shit, shower, and shave, as my old grandfather used to say. And my working day was a triumph. We tested the system, and it was finally error-free. In all departments of the company, all computer functions began to work faster and faster. My boss, Cliff, was delighted and muttered something inaudible about the bonus. I, of course, would have preferred a promotion, and for this purpose, while working, I trained an assistant, Eric. Now he knew how to find and fix problems just as well as I did. Almost. That evening, I invited Unaa to dinner, but he didn't mention success at work. I thought it best to wait and see if more money was on the horizon. Arriving home, we sat down in front of the TV. "Just time to go to the toilet," she said as the opening credits rolled. She returned when the movie started. "Sorry, Pete. The toilet is clogged and you are the man with the plunger. Please keep an eye on this, okay?" "Certainly. I leave during the first commercial break. But I don't feel comfortable leaving it like this." "Oh, please." And I went and did my duty in the toilet again. It took several dips in the plunger, 3 rinses, and a quick shower. On Friday morning, it clogged again, and I called our landlord from work. "Listen, Peter, it's in your lease, but right now I'm off my feet and won't be able to come until the end of next week. How do you feel about doing it yourself?" "I'm not going to crawl through a sewer, Len." "You don't need to. Last time I saw what cost it. It's not very pleasant, but it's not difficult at all. Continue. There's a square inspection hatch behind your back door. He serves your door and the next door. They pass under the dividing wall. Your toilet flushes into a sewer pipe that goes directly to this entrance. There is a small concrete shelf under the cover at the end of each pipe. This is where the clog usually collects. The amazing thing is how close to the surface it is in these old houses. What you wash off goes a few centimeters under the path. Okay, I'll try. Thank you. Let me know how you are doing. By the way, there is a long metal pole in the closet hidden behind your water heater. It lifts the lid and can also scrape out clogs. The work project was completed. I got up early for once and found a pole. I stood at the back door and the square hatch came off easily. What was revealed was exactly what Len described. To the left of the square hole was a round pipe that went straight into the depths of the sewer. It created a curved shelf above and to the left where the drains from my apartment and my neighbor's apartment came out. You always imagine that the drains and sewer pipes are much lower than here. The neighbor's side was clean, but mine was clogged. As disgusting as this sight was, I considered it my duty to go get my phone and take a couple of pictures for posterity. It only took a few scratches and the shit came out quickly. In the bathroom, I flushed the toilet and came back out to see it running free. Then I filled a bucket with hot water from the shower and added half a bottle of bleach. I washed the pole and wrapped the end in a plastic bag. He could stay outside overnight to dry out. I poured the rest of the bucket straight into the toilet, flushing away the last culprits. I felt like a hero and took a shower. That same Friday night, we were just finishing dinner when my cell phone rang. Cliff was still at work and panicking. I tucked the last piece of chicken between 2 slices of bread, thinking that was where the Earl of Sandwich began. Then he kissed Unaa and returned to the house. It was daylight in San Francisco, and their system crashed. Eric and a few other guys were talking on the phone with America. They walked them through the procedure, step by step. Cliff led me into his office. The problem is exactly the same as what we just solved here. We? Okay, Peter, you and Eric sorted it out. What are the consequences of downtime? How did you solve this problem here? I ran a parallel system so that I could work on the original while the office continued to work. It wasn't ideal because I had to take time away from renovation work to deal with the inevitable office glitches, 8 to 10 times a day, although this dwindled to 2 or 3 as we neared the finish line. Can the Americans fix it faster? We now know what caused it, right? No. I always knew the reason. I had to repair everything piece by piece, sort of working in reverse. It took 6 months, and this, despite the fact that I worked a lot of overtime. Then let's get down to business, Peter. What is the best way to get America to where we have just reached? And I mean internal work, without external contractors. You will need paper and pen. He took them out. Promote me to manager, with a corresponding increase in salary, plus a reasonable allowance abroad. Send me to San Francisco, and I guarantee that I will repeat what I achieved here. But I'm not going to exhaust myself by working all hours again. Tell them that I will help them every day. But it will take a year to completely fix it. During this time, I can keep them running and troubleshoot problems along the way. I will expect to choose my own hours of work. They can count on several Friday and Monday lunch breaks, and I still want to take a full vacation. I suspected it might be something like this. What else? I want them to provide me with a car and a 3-bed apartment not far from my place of work. 2 competent assistants will reduce the project to 9 to 10 months. I can finance your salary increase and travel arrangements, and I'm sure that they will find 2 assistants and provide you with a rental car. But short weeks and 3 bedrooms? They won't like it. You are the boss. You have to tell them that's the way it's supposed to be. This can be done faster if they bring in specialists, but it will cost them, us, much more than my proposal. It's not about me speeding up and down the Pacific Coast Highway. It's about spending time with my boys. Tell me on Monday how things are. I don't think I've ever been so determined with Cliff. But I was confident that I would get what I wanted. I was the center of attention. They could get the job done in 2 months if they were willing to throw a ton of money at the problem, and tolerate at least a week of downtime. But my demands will cost less. If they can't satisfy me, maybe I'll leave and try my luck elsewhere. Cliff should know about this. When I returned, Unaa was in a playful mood, but I was not in the mood. I was deliberately vague about my problems at work. She was never interested in technical issues. Over the weekend, I also postponed sex, citing the fact that my stomach hurt again. She looked especially sexy on Monday morning. "You look very glamorous. Party again?" "Hardly. I need one more deal. 2 guys come from Italy. If I can do this, I will be the unrivaled salesperson of the year. Rob, my closest competitor, should have done this. But I told the CEO that I wasn't happy that he would get it because I don't know much Italian. He said he was trying to even the odds." "Doesn't sound very businesslike. This is not a game." "That's what I said. Anyway, poor old Rob sprained his ankle. Gavin called me yesterday and he doesn't want these guys getting pitched by someone in a cast. He called the Italians, and they expected his best saleswoman to meet them at the airport. I'm happy for you. Will they sign the contract today?" "No. They will arrive at lunchtime, and I will bring them to the office to meet Gavin and look at our conditions. From there, go straight to dinner at their hotel. Gavin will be there, of course, making sure I don't sneak into their room. Then they will have an early night, and I will be home until 9. Won't he make sure you don't come back and visit them? He'll probably have someone at the hotel to keep an eye on them. As for me sneaking back to the hotel, you'll have to make sure I stay home. I can do it. I hope that didn't mean she would want sex. I'll have to come up with an excuse. My main meeting is tomorrow at their hotel. Not in their room, of course. Gavin booked one of their public meeting rooms. I will perform myself. I can buy them lunch and take as much time as needed. And of course, one of the staff will keep an eye on us, dropping by every 10 minutes with coffee and cookies. Tomorrow afternoon, I will probably return home early while the Italians discuss this. The next day, our American colleagues agreed to everything I wanted. An apartment and a car, although not a Mustang, were already arranged. Cliff booked me a plane ticket for Wednesday morning. He also agreed to pay to send a couple of boxes of my personal items there. The weather in California was virtually unchanged. I hoped that she would be like this. Take tomorrow off, Peter. Just call on Wednesday before you head to the airport to confirm everything is going according to plan. What will Unaa say about this? I made it clear that all her expenses will have to be paid by you. She will stay here, earns too much money to leave. Well, good luck to you." He stood up, and we shook hands. I wondered if I would ever see him again. I was to spend a year on the edge of Silicon Valley. My skills could be useful there. I had a feeling that Cliff suspected something like that. The rest of the day was spent clearing the table and saying goodbye. I returned home early, packed all my things, and sent them on the road. I won't need a checked bag on Wednesday. Carry-on luggage will be sufficient. I called Len, confirmed that I had just paid 3 months' rent, and told him that this was my notice to move out of the house. I wasn't going to miss it. He must contact Unaa directly to arrange a final check. Oh, and I solved the clog problem. Unaa and I have separate closets, so that evening she did not notice that I had packed all my personal belongings. I told her that I had been to the doctor that afternoon to get my stomach problems checked. He did some tests and decided I might have an ulcer. No sex today, baby. The medicine he gave me makes me sick. If it's an ulcer, it's because of all the overtime you do. You need to cut back on the work a bit. Don't worry. From now on, I will take everything much more simply. As our American cousins would say, have a blast. On Tuesday morning, Unaa was dressed up again and writhing with excitement. I hugged her tightly. Go and catch them, baby. Dazzle these Italian stallions with your charm. Thank you. Well, I need to leave early, so good luck. I'll be home around 6, and you can tell me how it went. I'll tell you. Be smart. I left, but not for work. I went to Vic's used car dealership. He only gave me $1,000 for the car. I was supposed to meet $1,200, but I couldn't. It would be better to exchange $1,000 for dollars. I knew that Unaa would be with the Italians at least until lunchtime, so I looked for a restaurant. There is no point in going to McDonald's or KFC. There are plenty of them in America. I stopped in for an early lunch at Maggie's all-day breakfast. Very English. I returned to the house around noon, stuffed the last of my things into a small backpack, and hid it in an empty closet. Our kitchen window looks out onto a short alley to our walled garden, and I ventured to open it slightly. We had a large potted plant on the bar that I moved to one end to block the view from the living room to the kitchen where I hoped to hide. I unlocked the back door and set my phone to record video. Then he returned to the front window to watch. Unaa arrived at 2:30. As she got out of the car, legs in black were briefly glimpsed. While she was unlocking the door, I managed to sneak out the back door. I stood on that important metal inspection hatch and looked out the kitchen window. I heard her cross the tiny hall a few centimeters away from me and enter the bathroom. The toilet was flushed, and I felt the lid vibrate slightly as water rushed out under my feet. She returned and stood at the window where I had just been. I guessed who she was waiting for. She was no longer wearing tights. The Italians arrived and she led them to the sofa. When she came into the kitchen, I pressed myself against the back door. Soon I heard the sound of a wine bottle opening. "Did you leave through the underground parking lot?" "Yes, it was simple. The elevator went straight down there and a taxi picked us up from there. Be sure to tell the taxi driver to drop you off there when you return." "Necessarily." She brought them 3 glasses of wine on a tray. The men stood up to toast a fruitful relationship and sat down again. Unaa stood in front of them, and they all lowered their glasses. "It will be easier if I help you take off your pants, gentlemen." They unbuckled their belts and began to tighten them. This was my moment. I didn't want to sneak in until I was sure they would start, when all 3 are engrossed in sex. They started, and I quietly opened the back door and crept up to the plant. I pointed my phone around the potty and started filming. I probably didn't need those early shots of clothes being shed, but I took them anyway. If I am discovered, I agree to anything that can be done to incriminate me. When they finished, the guys were still lying side by side on the couch, wearing only their t-shirts. Unaa was completely naked. They tried every position and every combination. I knew Unaa was good at it. I've just never watched it as a spectator before. They were already making noise, things were reaching a climax, and I moved to the other end of the bar counter and enlarged the image. It was very graphic, a threesome with all the ensuing consequences. When they finished, I slipped back into the garden, where I waited against the back wall, near the bathroom window. 5 minutes later, I heard her. As soon as I heard the toilet flush and the shower running, I returned through the back door. Ignoring Unaa's scattered laundry, I just managed to grab her phone. There in her contacts was the one I needed. He was listed under the name CEO, not Gavin. I called him from my phone and convinced his secretary that it was urgent. "Is it true that you monitor the morality of your employees?" "Who is this?" "Peter, partner of your best saleswoman, Unaa. More precisely, a former partner." "I remember you." "Yes, it's true." "Then get ready to receive some video clips that I just took." As soon as he received them, I briefly told him about the situation and asked him to listen to the details of the Italian's escape from the hotel. Then I briefly explained to him what my special photograph from earlier referred to. "Tell her not to come tomorrow," he said. "Sorry, buddy, it's your job. Tell her yourself. I would suggest face-to-face in front of her colleagues." I hung up and sent my first outdoor photo to Unaa's phone. When I came down with my backpack, she was walking into the living room, wrapped in a bath towel. Her jaw dropped. "What are you doing at home? And where are you going?" "Shut your mouth, Unaa. You look like a goldfish. To answer your questions, I came home to get my backpack, since I won't be here today. I'll spend the night in the same hotel where your Italian friends live. But when I get there, I'll use the front door, and not through the parking lot." Her mouth opened even more. "But why? What's happening?" "All the explanation you need is in the photo I just sent to your phone." I looked down at him lying on the couch. "Bye." I walked out the front door one last time, whistling, "California, Here I Come." Without a car, of course, I had to walk to the hotel. I didn't see any Italians that evening. I wondered if Unaa would show up to meet me, but there was no sign of her. Quite understandable under the circumstances. The next morning, I went to the airport. Unaa had a bad day ahead of her: work, bonuses, renting a house. In the taxi, I smiled and took another look at the photo I had sent her. An open inspection hatch and a blockage directly above the sewer. A lot of brown paper could be clearly seen, and half a dozen used condoms. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you And go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.